The night that descended upon the town of Cecil was no ordinary darkness. It was a suffocating blanket, woven with fear and stained with blood. Screams, once sharp and piercing, had now faded into whimpers that echoed through the desolate streets. Something ancient and malevolent had awakened, and it was hungry. Shadows danced with a life of their own, flitting from alley to alley, their movements too swift, too unnatural for human eyes to follow. The townsfolk, once a community bound by laughter and sunshine, were now just prey. The invaders had come without warning, their fangs glinting in the pale moonlight, their thirst insatiable. They were vampires, and they had claimed Cecil as their new hunting ground. In the heart of this chaos, a lone figure huddled in the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. Her name was Lydia, and she had seen things that would forever haunt her waking moments and poison her dreams. Neighbors, friends, faces she had known her entire life, were either gone or changed. The creatures that now wore their faces were monstrous parodies, their eyes burning with a red, predatory light. She had been running for hours, her lungs aching, her legs trembling with exhaustion. But now, she was cornered. A figure emerged from the blackness, tall and imposing. His eyes, twin embers of crimson, locked onto her, and a slow, cruel smile spread across his lips, revealing a pair of elongated canines. He was one of them. As the vampire advanced, his steps silent as a predator stalking its final meal, Lydia's survival instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to do anything. But her body was frozen, paralyzed by a terror so profound it stole the air from her lungs. This was it. This was the end. He was almost upon her now, the metallic scent of spilled blood clinging to him like a shroud. He raised a hand, his long, pale fingers tipped with claws, ready to strike. But then something shifted. Instead of a scream, a soft, quiet sound escaped Lydia's lips. "Please," she whispered, her voice a fragile, melodic plea that seemed to cut through the cacophony of the night. It wasn't a cry of defiance or a shriek of terror. It was a simple, heartfelt appeal for mercy, delivered with a strange and disarming calm. The vampire froze, his hand hovering inches from her throat. His cold, predatory gaze faltered, a flicker of something unreadable passing through his crimson eyes. Other vampires, drawn by the scent of her fear, began to close in, their hisses and growls filling the air. They saw an easy kill, a final morsel before the dawn. But to their astonishment, the male vampire who had cornered her turned, positioning himself between Lydia and his own kind. He let out a low, guttural snarl, a clear warning. It was a language they all understood. She was not to be touched. The other vampires, confused but unwilling to challenge his silent command, retreated back into the shadows, leaving the two of them alone in the eerie silence. Lydia stared, breathless, as this creature of nightmare, this killer, shielded her. "Thank you," she managed to breathe, her voice trembling. "Thank you for sparing me." In a move born of desperation and a strange, inexplicable trust, she pointed a shaking finger down the darkened street. I live just over there." He watched her, his expression a mask of stone, and then, as silently as he had appeared, he vanished into the night. Lydia stumbled home, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. Had she imagined it? Had a monster just shown her mercy? The following night, she sat huddled in her small home, the windows barricaded, listening to the distant sounds of the ongoing horror. A soft, almost imperceptible tap on her window pane made her jump. Peering through a crack in the curtains, her heart hammered against her ribs. It was him, the vampire from the alley. He was just standing there, in her garden, his crimson eyes fixed on her window, as if to confirm she was still safe. He didn't try to get in. He just watched, a silent, unmoving sentinel. This became a strange, unspoken ritual. Every night, he would appear, a guardian angel from the depths of hell, ensuring no other predator came near her home. Lydia, emboldened by his continued protection, began to leave her window slightly ajar. They started to communicate, at first in broken gestures and single, rasped words. His voice was a low growl, language a forgotten tool, but she was patient. Through the small opening, she learned bits and pieces. She managed to catch his name, a relic of a lifelong past, whispered on a cold breath, Frank. Seeing the pained conflict in his eyes, the battle between the monster and the man trapped within, Lydia was struck by a radical, dangerous idea. These creatures were driven by a biological imperative, a lust for blood. What if there was another way? What if their thirst could be quenched without taking a life? Driven by this sliver of hope, Lydia sought out Mr. Abernathy, the town's old, reclusive chemist. She explained her theory, a desperate, rambling plea for a synthetic alternative to human blood. The old man, having seen the devastation firsthand, listened intently and, against all reason, agreed to help. Days later, he presented her with a viscous, dark red serum. It was a chemical approximation, a gamble at best. That night, she offered a vial of the synthetic serum to Frank. He recoiled at first, his predatory instincts repulsed by the unfamiliar, chemical scent. But he looked at Lydia, at her hopeful, trusting face, and hesitantly, he took the vial. He drank it, his expression twisting in a mixture of disgust and grim necessity. It wasn't the same. It lacked the life, the warmth of his natural food. But the gnawing, agonizing hunger in his gut subsided, fading to a manageable ache. It was enough. Their connection deepened. Their nightly talks grew longer, his speech becoming clearer, more fluid. The gravelly monster was giving way to a man with a voice, a past, and a heart that was, against all odds, beginning to beat for her. Frank was falling in love with the human who had seen past his fangs. The other vampires noticed the change. They saw the red in his eyes soften, the predatory tension in his shoulders relax. They saw him becoming more like his prey. The serum, combined with Lydia's presence, was healing him from the inside out. It was a love that was quite literally making him human again. 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of secret romance and scientific miracles. One evening, Lydia cooked a simple meal, and to both their astonishment, Frank ate it. He truly tasted it, and it didn't turn to ash in his mouth. The humanity he thought was lost forever was flooding back. By the end of 3 months, the transformation was nearly complete. He looked less like a corpse and more like the man he once was. His fangs had receded, his skin had regained its warmth. Frank, filled with a newfound purpose, began a dangerous mission. He started reaching out to other vampires, those who, like him, were weary of the endless slaughter. He offered them Lydia's serum, showing them there was a way back from the abyss. Slowly, a small faction of healing vampires began to form, their hope for a normal life rekindled. But not all of his kind shared this desire for redemption. A larger, more ancient coven of vampires had watched Frank's transformation with contempt. They saw his cure as a disease, a weakening of their superior race. They believed in their dominance, in their rightful place at the top of the food chain. As summer approached, they retreated to the shadows beyond the city's edge, gathering their strength, their numbers swelling. They were not healing, they were planning. They were waiting for the perfect moment to strike, to eradicate the human lovers and drown Cecil in a final, definitive tide of blood. The fragile peace was about to shatter, and the love that had saved one's soul was now set to ignite a war. Will the fragile humanity that Frank and Lydia fought so hard to restore prevail, or will the unrepentant vampires drag the world back into an eternal, blood-soaked night? Find out what happens next in the next episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales.